In the unforgiving forests of the north, shape-shifting wolves have enslaved the sole human city for hundreds of miles, driving survivors up into the mountains. Leah Wilder, the daughter of survivors, has spent so long hunting werewolves that now one is stalking her in her sleep. When Leah tracks the shifter and finds him caught in a trap, she's convinced he's the white wolf from her dreams. Not that it matters, he's one of them, and they're at war. But as Leah pulls back the bowstring, Henrik shifts to human and begs her not to shoot. By name. But how could he possibly know her? In 20 years, the wolves have never crossed the river over to their side. Injured and unable to walk, Henrik needs Leah's help to get back home. If he could be turned against the pack, it could change the course of the war. But first there's a small problem of returning him to the wolves, without getting caught. Hello everyone, and welcome once again to the Heir's Lair. I'm your host, Jonathan Taylor. Today's video, in case the reading of the synopsis and the title already didn't convince you, is a book review, with the book in question being Dyrwolf. I hope I said that correctly. The authorial debut of Kat Kinney. In spite of being called Kat, she seems to have specialized in writing about werewolves, or more specifically, werewolf romance. Also, in spite of her debut only having come out 4 years ago, Kat is currently working on her third series. So, yeah, she's quite a busy little bee, if I can say so myself. If you haven't heard about this author yet, and are interested in getting into getting into someone else writing about werewolf romance, and the synopsis I just read out sounds interesting to you, then I won't stop you from getting into this book. Nor would I recommend it for reasons I'll get into soon enough. The story of this novel follows Leah Wilder, the daughter of the falconer from the village, a group of human refugees from the colony, a city of werewolves that the inhabitants of the village also have a claim to. In spite of the village having a sizably smaller population than the colony, they've been able to wage war for about 20 years. And one of the reasons they have been able to wage this war is because the village inhabitants have specialized in asymmetrical warfare. This war these two societies wage ends up encountering a new dimension when Leia encounters Henrik, a member who has some level of connections within within a broader werewolf society, and makes her a proposition that could either benefit or destroy both sides of the war. What that proposition ends up doing, I won't tell you here. I want you to find it out for yourselves, if you want to find it out altogether. So, that being said, what does this book do well? I'll probably sound like a broken record given it seems like I constantly start with this, but I really appreciate the world building that Kat has been able to put into this story. Like the village and the colony both have their own distinct societal model and organization, and she makes it very clear that what the reasons for their particular societal organizations are. Mostly due to how they collect resources, how much terrain they control, and what kinds of resources they can gather. Not just what kind, but also what they have. Not just what they can gather, but also how it is that these resources can be gathered. That would be interesting enough in and of itself, but then Kat goes the extra mile and it also explores the history that both connects and divides these two societies. Because they do have a common history up until a point, but then these histories diverge, and both societies use these this divergence in order to in order to both justify their war and motivate the goals with which they wage this war. It's I have to say very interesting to read through. And even though Cat is admittedly a little bit uninspired when it comes to the names, the world building still stands out as one of the best I've read this year. And given what I've read this year, that should be saying something. Other aspects of the story are a little bit more mixed, and then some others are just flat out bad. I'll talk about the ones that are mixed using characterization as an example. The main duo, as befits a romance, are actually fleshed out quite well. Be warned though, if you're not interested in reading about Mary Sue or Gary Sue type characters, these characters pretty much take all the boxes of either Mary Sue or Gary Sue characters. So be warned of that. You might not enjoy the story. I do, however, appreciate that Cat does a lot of does a very good job at exploring their perspectives and motivations, and not just within the romance but within the larger story, and also explores what draws these two characters, what draws these two characters together, and and so you understand why it is that they want each other from both a physical as well as an emotional standpoint. Other characters are done fairly well. I'll say so myself, but they don't really have comparable levels of either depth or development. And the further away from the main couple they are within the narrative, the less attention they receive, and the more they get lost in the shuffle as the story progresses. And now I have to discuss the outright bad that this story contains, which unfortunately is sizable. And it pretty much all stems from how Cat uses purple prose. Leia is the main POV character, and she is established as being kind of a loner within her society. And because of that, she has established plenty of her own references concerning how the world, concerning what the world is and how it should look. In practice, that leads to there being a flashback sequence or an overly verbose description at least once every page. And when I say at least once every page, I do literally mean at least once every page. There are literally hundreds of such instances all throughout the book. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that this way of telling a story, or this kind of character who who narrates and exposits quite intensely, is innately bad. In fact, I think it can be done well, and it can enhance both characterization and world building. However, it can only do so if done in moderation. This is not the main course. This is dressing. You have to use it as dressing, first of all. Second of all, you have to employ imagery that your audience would also be familiar with. And Cat, I'm sorry to say it, does none of that. She often refers to something the audience would be vaguely familiar with by comparing it to something the audience would be even less familiar with, which really kills a lot of the imagery, makes it very cluttered. And also later on in the book, when there is actually some action and some more tense scenes, the ways they are described very much kill pacing and kill tension in general. As an example, there is a scene where Leia and Henrik, in his wolf form, have to cross a somewhat rickety bridge. Henrik slips and almost falls into the river below. Nothing about the way this scene is described really gives me an idea on how the tension within what is supposed to be a tense scene is actually supposed to develop. I have no clue if Leia is struggling here because she has to pull Henrik up. I don't know if she herself also slipped off, and now they have to kind of both muscle up to the bridge at the same time. I don't even know how close each of them they are to safety until they've actually reached it. I don't know if they've clawed their way, far enough up the bridge, and that really kills any tension that this scene could have had. This book has so much description, some of which is quite inconsistent, but in this moment at least, it is used completely incorrectly. And then when you get to larger battle scenes later on in the book, forget it. You're not gonna catch up on anything. Like, things happen, but you have no point of reference as to what is going on, and you'll just get lost in the shuffle. It is completely impossible to follow, which is actually a huge shame, because the plotting of this book is done excellently. Like the various plot points and plot developments, as well as the information that fuels all of these plot developments, is actually done very well, and it creates a very engaging and very intense story. When you look at the story plot point for plot point, you see that it matches very well both a war story and a star-crossed lovers romance, which I absolutely like. But it is buried under so much description, so much hyperbole, and so much tangent exploration that you really do not pick up on any of that. Kat was really overly ambitious for her own good in her debut. I'll say that much. Overall, while I'm willing to admit that this book has positives, it is chronically incapable of being succinct. And it is more concerned about being special than it is about being good. My final rating for Dyrwolf is a 2 out of 5. And that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like, maybe even share this video wherever you think other people will like it as well. If you have anything you'd like to add to my review, well, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe, and ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. My own debut novel, Heir to the Empire Next Generation, is available at most major book retailers under a master link in the description down below, right past my social media links, which I also suggest you check out, should you choose to do so. Until next time, I am Jonathan Taylor, and this has been The Heir's Lair.